Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. It's the final quarter moon and it is on Friday, so it is going to be a Shabbat final quarter. I love when Shabbat aligns with the activations, just like an extra powerful foundation to work upon. I'm bleeding a little bit because I just scratched myself on this tree here, and I feel like it was some sort of strange initiation, but I'm hoping not to get it on the cards. So yeah, just a little sacrificial offering. Just kidding. Yes, I'm sitting here in the desert, Sedona, Arizona. Hello from Sedona. Sending love to all y'all tuning in from the Red Rocks. And for those of you who are watching this as a recording, you're tuning in at the perfect time, in the perfect place. Know that. There's nothing outside of divine order. So for the past few activations, quite a few activations, I've been separating the major arcanum from the minor arcanum and pulling in that way, but I grabbed my old deck of cards that I worked with for quite a few years, and it just feels so potent, so I began working with them again this week for the readings that I've done this week, and the major cards wanted to go back in with the minor, so we're back to a little bit of a different flow, you know, always changing, always shifting, always adapting to whatever intuition tells us needs adaptation. The thing is, if you really want to be guided successfully, you can't work based on appearances alone. You can't just work with what is seen. You have to work with the unseen. There needs to be that balance. So as we're constantly working to rebalance and realign our energies with the changing times, don't just look around you, but remember to feel within you and to be guided by both aspects of truth, the truth of reality and the truth of appearances. Equally as important. You need both. So this is the final quarter activation. For those of you who've never seen these activations before, the moon is used as a measure of time. The light of the moon is not her own. It's reflected from the light of the sun, which is reflected from the light of the spiritual sun, the primordial light of creation. So her light is not her own, it's reflected and it's nurtured. So what the moonlight is reflecting to us in its cycles is kind of what's happening behind all things and within all things. So again, the moon is just used here to measure the time and to give us a space to meet 4 times a month, every monthly cycle. She does a good job with that. But what her light is reflecting is what's happening inside of us, and that's the key to these activations. I'm just going to say now that if you enjoy this activation, the message activates you, you feel empowered by it, please, at the end of the video, share with your friends and your family. I'm blocked from sharing this to groups. They're always finding a way to block me. So if you can just share with your family and friends after this video, if you felt activated and if you feel that someone could benefit from this activation, please do. Share in your favorite groups. Share with people you know will appreciate the activation and uniting in this message with us. So while I shuffle, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what the final quarter moon activation does. Each activation serves as a map to best collect our energies and redirect them into the appropriate channels for the benefit of the one. So it helps us to organize our energies to move forward in a way that is most graceful, most efficient, and with the least amount of crisis. That's what these activations do. So the final quarter one, we just had the full moon activation last week. Super powerful, 17,000 plus people united in that message. And it was so needed. It was so needed. That message was so powerful that came through from the archetypes. And that full moon message was kind of the whole picture revealed. When the moon is full, it's just saying that, okay, now we have the whole picture. We have all the pieces to the puzzle of the month. And from the full moon until now, we've been integrating that message. But now here we are in the final quarter, and this is what I like to call the in-between week. This week is all about closing up the last chapter and planting the seeds for the new. The new moon is next week. I love the in-between. The bridge is the key, the uniting factor of the opposites, the forces of polarity. That's always where the gold is at. Just like you are the vessel for the earth and the stars to meet. The mind and the spirit meet in the body. This concept of being the bridge, which by the way is the definition of Hebrew, to cross over, be a bridge. It's so sacred. We are all light world bridgers. Everything in this life is polarity. Without polarity, there's no existence. And so we have to consider what is the container for that polarity, that is so sacred, to bridge those worlds, to focus on the union of those polarities. So that's what this week is to me, the sacred in-between. And I see this theme coming up in all the readings that I've done this week for myself and for those around me. People all over the world are uniting in the same theme that, okay, it's time to pause, that sacred pause in between, and really talk to the past and say, I feel complete. Speak to yourselves, speak to the universe, and say it, and really mean it. I'm closing up that last chapter. I'm ready. I'm ready to close that chapter. And at the same time, as we do that, a space begins to open up for us to be ready for the future. We can't just jump from one cycle to the next. There needs to be this sacred pause in between where we honor the old and welcome the new simultaneously. The bridge, the bridging factor. Each new dimension is born of the last one. We don't just jump into a new one. There's no space. Everything is connected. So the new needs to be born from the old. So death needs to be honored as a part of the rebirth. The old needs to be honored and properly let go of and surrendered in order to create that space for the new. So that's where we're at right now. How can you see that happening in your life right now? What are you saying goodbye to? What are you officially closing up? How can you seal that with a thought or some words or a ritual? And then, how can you, with your thoughts, words, and rituals, say that you're ready, truly, for the new beginning? I had a conversation with someone yesterday about that quote, be careful what you wish for. But maybe we can rephrase that. Be discerning for what you're wishing for, and then be ready for it and open up to receive it. I love this quote from C.C. Zane in his book, The Sacred Tarot. He's talking about the High Priestess, aka the Veiled Isis, Arcanum 2 in the Tarot, and he says, if she shows up in your reading, she's telling you, you can have anything you want, you can enter through any door, you can open the gates to whatever it is you desire, but first, study that door carefully. Study what is behind that door before you open it. Really choose wisely. So that's what we're doing. We're letting the universe know, I'm ready to close up the old and open to the new. Truly ready. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle. And while I do that, go ahead and let go of whatever you're carrying with you that maybe you've been carrying all day, all week, all month. Who knows, maybe this entire lifetime. Do your best to set it all down just for this moment. Because if you're so busy thinking the same things or carrying a heaviness, there's no space for this wisdom to come through. So go ahead and set it down just for this moment. Just for this moment. And then however you can, however you know best, connect to the deck. You can see yourself here with me right now in the desert. You can see a string of light going from your pineal gland to the deck. You can see it from your heart to the deck. However you want, just feel that you are here now with me, and we are together as one, and we are preparing a space to allow this wisdom to come through. And I like to put it this way: energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. So everything that you see in existence, there's nothing new under the sun. So we don't need to create a space, but we can tap into a space that's already here. And what is the most expansive space? The infinite space of the heart. So let's meet there, in that sacred vacuum, in that vortex of the heart, okay? And let's just give thanks in advance to these archetypes or faces of the one. The aspects of our own psyche, the different parts of self that are going to explain to us what is most important right now for us to focus on, and show us what is the most challenging aspect of what we're experiencing right now, so that we can align our thoughts and our actions with the proper method to achieving success, individually and collectively. And again, we're at the final quarter, so closing up the last chapter and beginning the new. Okay, I feel called to only pull 2 right now. Let's see what has come up. Whoa, a Page of Cups and Ace of Cups. Cups is the suit of the heart, emotions, affections. So it looks like this was the past, okay? This was the cycle that we're closing up. This is representing the cycle we're closing up. And this is the future. And I see a very powerful message already tying them in together. We've been practicing opening up our heart despite all of the chaos that's going on, all of the chaos that's unfolding globally. We've been really, despite all that loud chaos, and hate and anger, darkness, we've been still hearing the whisper of the heart. I feel, and I don't know how you feel about this, let me know if this resonates with you, but I feel that we've been, those of us who are aware of the mission and the shift that's taking place, the paradigm shift that's taking place, we've been doing really well in staying in our hearts. Despite all the craziness, we're really holding it down for the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying? And so we've been kind of stumbling through it, recognizing how it's hard. We're human, and sometimes we get pulled into the madness in ways big or small. But the key is in examining what our response was once those feelings would arise. Like when you had that pull into the darkness, or when you felt anger or hate towards another this past month. Were you able to maintain the observer's standpoint behind that? Were you able to see yourself moving in maybe the not the best direction? Were you able to catch yourself and say, whoa, stay in your heart. Be the messenger of love. Be the messenger of the heart. Were you able to do that? Were you able to pull in love where it felt like there wasn't any? And the message is this for next cycle. We have to see ourselves as a professional messenger of the heart. We have to look into this past month and see, where was I maybe not in my heart, and how quickly did I catch that, and how good was I at redirecting my energies into a more positive channel? How good was I at catching myself before it went too far and bringing my heart back into it? And at this point, it's not as important how how well we succeeded at that mission. What's more important is that we just become aware of it right now. That we at least become aware that there have been times where maybe we've been slightly, off our heart center. But now we just need to really meditate on how have we responded in those situations, and how will we respond to that inevitable situation unfolding in the future? Because this is only the beginning. There's so much change taking place as we speak, and there's so much more to come. This is only the beginning. The tower is falling, and we are going to rebuild a new one. But it's falling right now. So how can we make sure that we stay in our heart? First of all, by examining how we've done so up until now. Because when we do that, we're really looking at our subconscious, and we're getting a feel for how have we naturally been responding without that extra awareness, without being super present maybe. And so that's valuable. That's valuable insight to really examine ourselves and ask, how have I been responding? It helps us to see what's really going on deep inside, because when we allow our instinctive self to just react, we don't want to condemn ourselves for that. We don't want to just be upset with ourselves for that, but we want to observe ourselves. It's a study. It's a self-study and examination so that we could eventually reach that self-illumination, self-realization. So without harsh judgment, from that place of the mother and father within, go back and look at this past month and ask yourself, how have I naturally responded to the pain, to the hate, to the anger, to the injustice, to the chaos? And even if you were already able to maintain that observer's perspective, what were your feelings that came up that you maybe didn't act upon but wanted to? And why are those there? Why are those feelings there? Why did you want to respond a certain way, even if you didn't? It's still coming up for you. So what are those feelings telling you? So the point is, we really need to look at what our instincts are. How does our body feel it needs to respond in those moments, even if we don't act on it? What is that? What is that feeling? And how can we refine how we respond to all the chaos that's unfolding right now? Because, like I said, this is just the beginning, and so much more is on its way. And that's okay. Because all the chaos, pain, hate, anger, all that is of a frequency that cannot exist beyond the grave. It can't pass through the portal, the sacred portal of death and on to rebirth, you see? Because in this frequency we reach when we leave this body, all that pain and the lower vibration stuff, it's so dense, it cannot exist there. So it's not some like woo-woo, all the pain falls away. No, it's like actually very scientifically true that all that stuff is left behind and fades away. So the pain, the chaos, the hurt, the anguish, the depression, that will be left behind. This is just the truth. This is the facts. This is science. This is real life. So instead of focusing on all those things, instead of attuning our lens to that hate and going deeper into it, how can we see how far we've come at this point and ask ourselves, how much of our attention have we been giving that hate, and how can we respond in a way that's more spiritually aware and in a way that's going to be helpful for the one, in a way that maybe we can perform some alchemy and make something of that energy so that we can transmute it into light, so that energy does go with us beyond the grave, so that we're contributing to something that is everlasting, something that's really worth our time. Because the more we continue to respond to that hate, even if it's not out loud with our words or our actions, even if it's just in our thoughts, if it's still arising, if it's still in our collective cellular memory, we have to ask ourselves, what are we to do with that? What are we to do with that if it's still coming up? It's not that it's not okay. It's not that it's bad and we should be angry with ourselves, because we'll trick ourselves. We'll only fall farther into that trap and create more things out of a lower frequency that ultimately will not be sustained and will die anyway. So how can we look at this instinctive response to hate, right? This cellular memory we have of how we should be responding to hate. And how can we transform that in a way that works for the highest good of the one? So let's put our thinking caps on. What's the best way to deal with that? I think that going into it mentally, with the ego mind, things can become convoluted. So let's take a hint from the cards here. It's saying here, you were this page, you were the youthful aspect of the suit, and you were kind of like trying your best to be this messenger of love and stay in your heart, but it hasn't taken us all the way there yet. This was a part of the process, no doubt, but it hasn't gotten us all the way to the root of the issue, which is this cellular memory to instinctively respond to the hate in one way or another. The fact that it's still uprising within the collective mind, within the universal mind, no matter how advanced you are, if there's still thoughts of hate arising, we haven't quite gone all the way with our healing, right? So how can we take it to the next level? The Ace of Cups, okay? The aces are not only initiations, but they're also the raw power of the element that is pulled. So look at that cup. That's the Holy Grail. That's the cup of the heart, and it's overflowing. The key words for this card are unconditional love. That's obviously the answer. There's no amount of thinking and strategizing we can do that's going to lead us to the proper method of how we can destroy and annihilate this program of hate, okay? There's no amount of thinking we can do. So what the archetypal alliance is helping us with here is giving us a very clear, obvious message that even a child could understand. It's saying, duh, the answer is that unconditional love, the overflowing heart. So get out of your head and into your heart. Don't try to strategize. Don't try to be in your rational mind about this. That's what we've been doing up until now, and it's provided us with a foundation that was necessary to reach this point of where we're at now, but we can't go any farther there. This is the domain of the heart. Okay, so whenever you feel anger or hate or a frequency that's going to create something that's not going to be for the highest good of the one, right? Whenever you feel these low vibrational thoughts, even if you don't speak on them, even if you don't act on them, if they arise in your mind, don't judge yourself in a way that's harsh where you're saying, oh, you shouldn't be having those thoughts. Well, then you're just going to put yourself in a program of self-denial, and that's not going to get us anywhere. So what we need to do together is encourage each other to, when those thoughts arise, not condemn each other for it and not condemn ourselves for it, but to recognize that, hey, wow, that's coming up in my mind as a reflection of what's happening in the collective universal mind. And I'm glad it's coming up because I am a light worker, because I am here on the mission. And I'm glad it's coming up because who better than me, who accepts this responsibility to go in and do the work, perform the ritual, to properly respond to it once and for all so that we could heal this within the collective mind. So don't be upset if it's uprising. Remember, it's not about you. It's about us. It's about the one. It's about you, the larger you, of which we are all a part. So when you have those thoughts like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that. Well, how vain of you. It's not you who's thinking that. It's us who's thinking that. We're all in this together. So let's shift the way that we look at that. When those negative thoughts arise, don't be upset with yourself. Remember, we're all in this together. We're all sharing the pain, the heaviness, the suffering. It's literally impossible to be alone in that. Alone, all one. So instead, when those thoughts arise, remember this. Remember the unconditional love of the heart, the overflowing cup. And literally, you could just see this image. The tarot is a very magical tool. It provides these images for a very specific reason. Every little part of it is intentionally drawn out for your visionary and meditative purposes. See this. That's your heart. That's your heart. And it's the center of everything. So again, when you have those thoughts that arise that are anything less than this unconditional love and an initiation of the overflowing cup of the heart, the Holy Grail. If anything arises in your mind that's less than this, Don't be upset. Don't shoo it away. Don't judge yourself. Remember, it's ours. We share that burden. And it's coming up for a good reason, because God, Source, Great Spirit is trusting you with this great responsibility, choosing you. And there's none other but the one self. So you chose you. That's why you're chosen, okay? So ultimately, some higher part of yourself chose you for this mission. So we're happy. We welcome it. We invite it when these thoughts come in of anger, hate, whatever. Because we know that we can be trusted with properly responding, especially now, thanks to the messages from the Archetypal Alliance, or the angels or angles of the higher mind. The world of the archetypes is the world of the higher self. They help us to come out of our little egotistical story, come out of the material entanglement, and act from a place of truth. When we get back into our roles as these characters that are divine, they help us to find better words, better responses to what's unfolding, even here in the material realm. So we transcend in the mind, but we stay in the body, right? Because we don't want to leave the body. But we transcend in the mind. We gather the wisdom from the Archetypal Alliance in the higher realms, and then we bring it back in and we act on it, trusting that those universal laws rule both above and below. So when you have those thoughts of anger, what are we going to do? We're going to say, I welcome you. I'm ready for this mission. I recognize this mission. And I'm equipped with all the tools that I need within me to respond to this. In fact, it's the archetypes. I'm just going to open up and allow them to come in and do their work. So when those thoughts arise, don't just say, no, I shouldn't be thinking that. Instead say, okay, I'm going to shift my response and I'm going to transmute this to love. So a big message that has been coming all week to me through these archetypes and is coming through again right now, so I'm going to share it, is this. No matter, this is huge, you guys. We're in the age of Aquarius, mind, mentality, brotherhood of man. So we're going to struggle with technology and communication until we find that balance and get it right and access the gift within that challenge, right? So of course, in the coming together, we're going to be a little like stumbling, kind of like we're just learning how to walk all over again, right? So we so badly want to just be right. Okay, so that's where a lot of anger arises, even in those who've done so much work. It's like there's this need to be right. And so if people are protesting, or if people are sharing their truth and speaking up, even if you think they are wrong, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right now, you can see everything that's happening, the uprising, the chaos, is like a collective wounded child. And it doesn't matter whether the child is wrong or right. It's feeling what it's feeling. That child's feeling what it's feeling. And we can't just jump to peace and equality for all. The wounds need to be tended to. The spotlight needs to be fully on the wounded child of the collective soul. And then we can properly integrate it. A lot of people say, it should just be equality for all. But the voice of pain of specific people is speaking right now. And until that is acknowledged fully with all of our presence, we can't move forward to that equality and justice for all. It needs our fullest awareness. We can't have part of our awareness focused on the future of equality for all. That's skipping ahead, and that's cheating, and that's giving part of our power and awareness away to something that hasn't yet manifested. And if we don't give all that power and presence fully to what is right here, right now, which is this voice of this wounded child, we're skipping a step. So as much as it seems crazy and irrational to not just jump to that peace and equality for all, it's just what's right. It's just what's true. Salve et coagula. You take the parts apart, you separate first, and study each of the parts, and then you can unite it to be whole. But until each part of that whole, each one of us gets the full presence and full spotlight and full attention, we cannot move ahead to that equality and wholeness. So we may think, why can't we just jump there? But remember, we cannot skip this step. We have to stay in our hearts, especially when we think that we're right and they're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. That's where that sneaky hate comes in. No matter how much love we've done as light workers and as world bridgers and eliminating the hate in our heart, that hate will come back in really sneaky ways. And I'm telling you right now, this is how it's happening. The back door for that hate to get in is being opened through this idea that we need to be right. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. The wounded child is speaking. The wounded child of a collective spirit is speaking. And until it is heard, whether it's right or wrong, it will not find peace, and we will not find peace. As a mother, I've certainly experienced this, and I continue to experience this again and again. Do you think that just telling a crying child, I'm right, you're wrong, is going to make everybody happy? It makes no one happy. It makes everyone feel worse. You lay there later feeling guilty that you did nothing to solve the problem. Same thing with the inner masculine and feminine within each one of us, not even bringing anyone else into the situation, just looking at our own self and looking within. We can see how sometimes our feminine side, our emotional nature, despite how irrational it might appear on the outside when it's expressed, when we really tune into the feeling of it, there's only truth there. There's only truth there. But our masculine and rational thinking nature wants to step in, the ego, right? The ego, the masculine is represented by the sun, the soul and the feminine is represented by the moon. So the ego wants to get in, and depending on how developed it is, how conscious or unaware it is, it will affect that emotional process. But the more we develop our ego to work for the spirit, the more they could work together, right? And then maybe we don't judge our emotional process as much, but we feel it, we hear it, we tune into that truth. We allow it to fully be in its truest expression, in its authenticity. We allow those emotions to just be, right? So this is what it looks like. It's like your feminine is emotional and your masculine becomes the observer and allows the emotions to fully be expressed through every ounce of our being, through every particle of our being. And then she says, okay, I'm ready to give you the spotlight. I'm ready for you to take over. Then she becomes the observer. The emotions take a pause. And he, the crown, right, steps in. The heart takes a pause and the crown steps in and says, this is how I'm going to support you. This is what we're going to do. This is the proper process of guiding your inner mother and father, your inner masculine and feminine. They can't both work at the same time, but they work in oscillation. So at any given time, we need to give our fullest awareness to being the vessel for one or the other. But the other is always there, it's just observing. This is the same thing with the child, okay? Children act on their instincts. So they're more so their moon sign, for example, than their sun sign when they're children, okay? When we're kids, we're more in our instinctive self. We're acting from that place of the subconsciousness and maybe all of our past lives and all of our collective memory. We're acting from there with less awareness. And as we grow, we become more and more of our sun sign. We move more and more into that enlightened role, right, with experience. But as children, we're acting from that instinctive place. So you can see children really as a representation of that feminine. So it doesn't matter when we're talking to a child how right we think we are or how right we know we are. What matters is what they're feeling and the truth behind that. Can you feel the truth behind their words? Can you offer your open heart despite your ego telling you, whispering in your ear all the judgments of what that child is saying? Can you still be in your heart? That child's not wrong. The adult is wrong when we can't do this. Doesn't matter how right you appear on the outside. You are wrong if you can't keep an open heart. Did you forget the whole reason why we're here? We cannot forget the whole reason why we're here is the open heart. This is literally the key. The open heart. The unconditional love. Compassion. This is the golden rule. And in fact, it is the root of every religion. And it's the foundation of every culture. This is the center wisdom of it all because it's based in the heart, which is the center of it all. So no matter how wrong or right anyone is, look to the heart. How open is it? How resonant are you with the frequency of compassion and unconditional love? Because despite what's happening outside, despite what's happening here on the material plane, if you look in, you tune in to the heart of the one who's speaking, you will know how right they are in that moment. Because what's right is being in that frequency, no matter what. Our higher selves set this up, right? Like to trick us, to test us as much as possible with this ability to be able to stay with an open heart and to vibrate at that frequency of unconditional love. So there's this funny trick we play on ourselves to see like, oh, how superior can I feel right now to make myself forget the actual goal of maintaining an open heart. So be careful. Remember the mission. Remember why we're here is unconditional love, an initiation of the overflowing cup, the Holy Grail. So this is what we're being asked to do whenever we feel not quite there. Whenever we feel that we're right, they're wrong. I don't agree with the way this person is speaking their truth. I don't agree with the way this person is protesting or telling the protesters not to protest. I don't care what side you're on. It doesn't matter if you think or know you're right. We're all being fooled right now. We're being fooled. So let's take back our collective power. The people, let's take back our collective power. And anytime this thought arises where we feel we're better or superior than someone else, or we're right and they're wrong, check in with your heart and go back to the frequency of unconditional love and compassion. And that takes some effort, because when you feel in that superior place, the ego has a strong hold. And it really will do anything to stay there because it feels good to the ego. And the ego will tell you, no, we're right. And this overflowing cup idea is over here, like, let me in, like an angel or angle of consciousness that wants to pervade your awareness. But that ego is got a stronghold, and it's like, nah, we're not letting that in. We are right. I want to just be right. And screw that unconditional love, fluffy BS, right? A lot of people say that. They're like, at this time, that's not going to help. No, it always helps, and it's always the answer. It's just about how you use it, how you embody that frequency, and how you act on it. Action is key. So yeah, this whole idea of like, if you're neutral, you're wrong, maybe, but look a little bit deeper. Unconditional love and compassion is always the answer. It's simply about how we're embodying it and how we're acting upon it that makes the change. So let's not judge someone for being active or inactive. Let's not judge anyone for their truth at all. Let's just remember to, despite all of the excuses of the ego mind, return to the overflowing cup. Especially when it's the hardest to do. Especially when your ego has unending excuses. The louder the ego, the more you want to tell it, no thank you. The more powerful the ego, the more powerful we need to bring in the heart and acknowledge the heart. So especially when you're feeling, no, I don't care, enough with the fluffy stuff, this person is wrong and I need to stick by it. That's your red flag saying, whoa, you're really letting yourself go overboard there. Go back to your heart, and remember the collective wounded child, the spirit of the collective wounded child. It doesn't matter how right or wrong anyone is. We're all wrong on both sides if we're not maintaining the open heart. So there is no answer but this right now. Your mind, your thinking mind, your rational mind, and your attitude of superiority and being right, it will not get us anywhere. The only answer now is to return to the heart. And if you look at Vedic scriptures, they say that in the age of Kali Yuga, in order to call in the new age and the new beginning, all we can do is chant. All we can do is praise God and stay in that frequency of unconditional love. Because what does that do when you're chanting and you're constantly just saying thank you and you're in that frequency of gratitude? You don't need to be a Vedic astrologer or some wise old sage to understand that magic of gratitude now. It's like mainstream. Like, y'all seen The Secret, right? Y'all read the book? right? Like, you know about the law of attraction and the power of gratitude? Well, that's what these ancient scriptures were telling us, that if we maintain that frequency, and the best way to do that is by filling ourselves with these mantras, songs of praise, right? That we will succeed, that this is the only way, that anything else will just confuse us. We have to stay on the straight and narrow path of the one to the heart. That's it. So you don't need to be some wise old sage to understand this now. This is 2020. The law of attraction is back. The awareness of Hermetic law. These ancient truths and occult wisdoms are now being revealed. The esoteric is being made exoteric. We're going from the high priestess to the Hierophant. We're revealing all. The veil is being lifted. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand the power of gratitude and what it means to raise our frequency to that degree of consciousness, to raise our awareness to this frequency. It's the key. Nothing else will do right now. Again, your rational mind, the ego mind that wants to constantly overanalyze and be right, and be full of power, this is going to get us nowhere. You cannot win with an upset child by telling it, I'm right, you're wrong. The child needs love and needs to be heard and validated, no matter what the reason is for why he or she is feeling that way. So can you see that in the pain of the voices of those speaking right now all around the world, speaking up on injustice? So many people. There's not just one group of people. There's so many people speaking up, speaking their truth. The truth is coming out, and it doesn't matter who's wrong or right. The chances are many of their truths contradict. And I love that. I think, who is it, Walt Whitman? I don't know. There's a quote, and it's like, do I contradict myself? Very well, then. I'm large. I contain multitudes. Because the truth is a paradox. So you can sit there wasting your time yelling at everybody and saying, you're right, you're wrong, I'm right. It's confusing, you know? There's so many people that we can look around and judge and waste all of our time for the rest of eternity saying, you're right, you're wrong, you're right, you're wrong, you're right, you're wrong, right, wrong, right, wrong, right, wrong. It doesn't matter. We have to rise above the who's right, who's wrong. There's going to be so many aspects of right and wrong within each person even. We all have that battle going on within us. So forget about looking outside. That's just going to be a reflection of that inner conflict. Chances are you can look around and see truth and untruth in every person, and even in yourself. Because we all have those polarities within us. The truth is dual. And hey, you may agree with one person today, but you may disagree with them tomorrow, and vice versa. The point is, there's always going to be shit out there that you agree with and that you don't. So what the heck is the point of it all if we forget about the purpose of why we're here, this overflowing cup, unconditional love? Don't be fooled. There are many people speaking up right now on their feelings, the injustice, the pain, the hatred, the lack of equality in our world. And it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree, they need to be loved in the way that they need it right now, not in the way that you see fit. They need love how they're asking for it. You know, my son at night, he says, I really need some freezing cold water. Every night, can you go get the cold water from the fridge, Mom? And can you put ice cubes in it? Because we use room temperature water. But sometimes he needs the damn cold water. And I used to be so frustrated with it, but then I began to understand that it helps him. It makes him feel good. Even if for no other reason other than he's created in his own mind. And I want to nurture that. So I could sit there yelling at him and saying no because I'm lazy and I don't want to get it, or no because I believe room temperature water is better and you're wrong and I'm right. But the fact of the matter is, when I go and get him that cold water, he feels better, he feels good, he enjoys it, we're both happy. I can do it out of a loving service for him, and we go to bed peaceful and knowing that we honor each other, we respect each other, and we're going to treat each other, in the ways that we desire to be treated, not only in the way that I feel you should be treated or you feel I should be treated. So again, whether you think these voices that are speaking out right now are right or wrong, they just need validation, or we're not getting anywhere. We're never going to reach that utopian world, a world of real equality and justice for everyone, if we don't equally give our awareness to each of the voices that are crying out right now. Don't just lend an ear. give both of your ears. Lend your ears and eyes, nose. Lend your whole being. Lend all of your bodies. Lend your emotions. Lend your mind. Hear, perceive, listen, receive what each voice is saying fully, without just jumping in with, oh, me too, or I know, or, oh yeah, well, I can relate like this, right? Because a big part of our collective consciousness is this idea of association, this principle of association. So we so quickly want to just compare, and sometimes it's out of a place of love. Like we just want to relate. So we could have compassion for that too. All those people who are speaking over you. For those of you who have been speaking up on injustice and how you've been feeling mistreated or treated unfairly, know this: a large part of why people are speaking over you and saying, oh, and me this and me too, and comparing, is because they love you, because they want to relate, because they're empathic and they don't even know it, because that's what we are, humans. We associate. The mind wants to associate and make connections. So some people are doing it because they're vain, sure, and it's the ego speaking. But try to have compassion. I know it's hard to ask because you feel hurt and you feel pain, and it's like asking a crying child to have compassion, right? But they can, you'll see. Children are capable of that level of love, and it's amazing. We can all learn from that, right? But just try to understand when people speak over you and they're not fully able to give their presence and listen to you, it's not necessarily because they hate you or they don't want to hear it. It's because they're trying to relate from the level of consciousness that they're at, from the level of awareness that they're at. So I'm saying right now, for all sides of the one, for all of us, wherever you're at, whatever you're feeling, how can we have more compassion rather than creating a rational strategy to move through this? How can we just come back to the heart and simplify it? And remember that having that overflowing cup, having that unconditional love, requires you to be fully here, requires your soul to be fully in your body so that it spills out and over, so that your aura radiates so strongly. We have to be integrated. We can't transcend the body, maybe mentally, but then eventually even that needs to come back. We need all of our parts, our mind, our thinking mind, our feeling, emotional body. All of those bodies need to be here, now, present, listening to that voice of pain, whomever it's coming from, because it's some aspect of ourself. It's some part of the collective psyche that needs to be heard, whether or not you think it's right. So how can you, without jumping in, cutting someone off, saying me too, trying to relate or associate, how can we refine our collective experience here right now? Alchemize this experience, shift this whole experience here on this earth together by responding differently now, by not jumping to make associations, but by reaching a new level of empathy and compassion and even psychism, by being fully present, by putting our associations on hold and lending all of the senses to receiving the words of whomever is speaking, whether that's one person or a group of people. How present can you be with their message before jumping in with your judgments and your condemnation and your association? Before doing all that, just for a moment, can you practice this just for a moment, putting that aside and fully hearing the voice of the people or the person who's speaking to you or screaming at you even? Can you feel what's behind their words? Can you put aside your own feelings for a moment? They're not going anywhere. You could take them back in if you want after. You don't have to die for this to happen. It's just, God damn, like put yourself on pause for one moment, right? If you're feeling so much of your own stuff, your emotional body is not being present with the feelings of whatever that person is feeling. And that reflects into every dimension. So if some part of your emotional body is tied up, that means some part of your mental body is tied up, even some part of your physical body is tied up. But if we can fully open up in every dimension, we become that empty vessel for that other person to reflect, right? You become that sounding board, that container, that safe space for that person to be fully seen, fully heard, fully felt, and respected, acknowledged, validated. The Mayan people called this the white mirror. It was a gift that people possess or can acquire because we could all access this part of the collective psyche, this white mirror of clearing our own stuff, mentally, emotionally, everything aside, so that we become empty, a clear mirror for those around us to be able to reflect, release, unload, be loved. And those people who had that white mirror aspect became these healers and shamans for their society, because they were able to clear their own stuff, if only for a moment. It's not like they didn't have their own personal lives. They do. They just know how to separate. Believe it or not, division and separation has a divine purpose. We're so focused on this idea that unity, unity, unity. But remember, salve et coagula, separate first, study the parts, and then put it back together. That's why we're here. We fall to rise again. We come into this physical experience of separation, seemingly in separate bodies, so that we can learn and grow and reunite by way of our choice, using our free will to return again and again back to the one, back to wholeness, back to unity. But without the separation, what is that experience? In the spiritual dimension, everything is already one and it's perfect. We chose to come here to experience this sacred separation so that we can choose to return to each other again and again. Without the challenge, there's no transcendence. There's nothing to transcend. Without the darkness, there's no light. There's nothing to compare, right? So it's just a beautiful experience. That's the divine romance, returning again and again to the self, reuniting. So don't look at separation and division from such a bad lens. Maybe redefine what is the sacred purpose of division, because there is one. And in fact, it's the whole reason for our existence. The one becoming two, becoming three, becoming the many. Don't forget about the real purpose for separation. Limitations, veils, boundaries exist for very healthy reasons. You know this if you study conscious communication, conscious relations. Boundaries are set up for the good of the one. Imagine if the veil was lifted and everything was revealed all at once. We would be so overwhelmed we would explode. So for our benefit, consciousness is set up in this divine design so that the veil is lifted on certain truths at the perfect moment when we're meant to receive it for the highest good of the one. Okay, so the light is constantly being reconfigured for our highest good. If something is hidden, perhaps it should be, and it will be revealed in the perfect time. We have to know that. So remember, we're trying a new thing here. We're understanding the associative ability of the mind, and that's great, associations, it's great. It helps us to relate, be empathic. But we're taking empathy and our psychism to a new level, this new level of communication within the collective. Instead of immediately making a judgment or deciding who's right and wrong or making an association or speaking over the other, we're going to be this white mirror. We're going to clear our own mirror. We're going to set our stuff aside just for a moment. And we're going to become the container for someone to fully reflect and speak and say their truth so that they can be heard fully. And you know what happens? When the other experiences that, when you offer that as a gift, your safe container for others to unfold, it's reflected, and then you receive the spotlight so that no one has to fight for it. Okay, this is like the proper way to reflect the divine oscillation that's happening beneath everything, right? Because life is the forces of polarity vibrating. And once they stop, there's death, stillness, and then rebirth, right? But so far, what we've been doing is communicating like that, very back and forth, not really fully giving the other the spotlight. But when we slow things down, and we still oscillate, but in a manner that's more whole, first giving you fully the spotlight, then me fully taking the spotlight. When we do this, we're kind of attuning our frequency to work more efficiently, to work for the highest good of us all. So we're so quick to oscillate and go back and forth, back and forth. How can we just slow that process down? Still maintain that oscillation, right? It's sort of like the collective consciousness right now, or the collective mind is taking a deep breath. And we're recognizing that the oscillation doesn't have to be so fast. It just has to continue for life to be. We need separation. We need division. But how can we use it to our advantage? So when we can divide our own crap from someone else's, that's one way of doing it. When we could put our stuff aside and divide that from whatever the person needs to share, it can come back in when it's for the highest good. So how can we redefine separation and understand how to use that within our relationships to separate myself from you in a way that actually helps both of us? That's how we do it, this white mirror concept, this becoming the empty vessel for others to unload. And then we can say our piece. But at any given moment, only one voice should be speaking. Another way to look at this is the Native American ceremony, passing the peace pipe or passing the talking stick. As that item is passed, that person holding it becomes the voice for the group, for the whole. But without fully hearing each one, we can't reach that proper conclusion. That right perspective that's going to be equal and fair for all. So if one person has the talking stick, but everybody's talking over him, and he never gets his chance to speak, whether you think it's right or wrong doesn't matter. If he's not fully heard, the entire balance of the circle is thrown off. So how can we get back to that circle of life, of love? How can we get back to that wholeness and forget about who's right, who's wrong, and remember it's about the heart, compassion, and being that container for each other? How can we pass the talking stick and fully hear each person out? Because each voice is a part of the whole. Each group of people, each race of people, each culture, each religion, they're all parts of the whole, despite your judgments of them. And they each need to be heard, or it's not fair. It's not so much about what they're saying, but what they're feeling. And about validating that without your projection or association or judgment. For once, can we just fully hear? And not just hear, but feel, perceive, receive the truth of what's being said? So again, I'm going to remind you that in the beginning of the video, we spoke about this. Don't be upset when anger arises in your mind, or separation, or hate. You're being given the sacred gift to be the one responsible for transmuting that within the collective consciousness. So say, ooh, hate is arising. Ooh, separation is arising. How can I transform it to be of use for the highest good of the one? How can I say to that hate, oh, excuse me, check in with your heart. Are you being unconditionally loving? Are you forgetting that you can't tell a child I'm right, you're wrong? That they just need to be felt, heard, and seen? Remember that child, right? And when separation comes up, remember, it's not about furthering that separation in a way that's not going to work for anyone, but it's about remembering that we are separating right now for the highest good. We're giving that spotlight fully to that person that's speaking, our stuff aside. That's the separation that needs to happen. If you're talking to a child who's hurt, you're not going to say, well, I'm sad too. I mean, sometimes that comes up. I share my feelings with my son, but not while he's really feeling it. There's no space. A child doesn't let you do that. The child knows that he or she needs that spotlight. They know more than we do what they need. So you got to fully hear them out. All right, you guys, remember that Ace of Cups, unconditional love. I just want to remind you guys that Facebook blocked me from sharing this powerful message with groups. So if you can share this message with those who you feel would benefit from it, your friends who are awake or awakening, your family who maybe really needs to hear an uplifting message right now. Maybe you're a part of a group of people on Facebook, a group that supports this paradigm shift, this raising of our collective frequency. light worker groups, magician groups, tarot groups, divination, consciousness, occult messages, whatever, symbolism, groups of, where people are talking about spirituality. Anywhere where you think it's going to be appreciated, please share the message. And the more people that share, the more magical presence we offer to this sacred portal that's opened right now, because we did that. We did this. We opened up the portal. How many people, beautiful, amazing beings around the world, can we get to add their magical presence into this portal so that this mission is activated and this initiation of unconditional love is achieved in the biggest way possible? I see this as the heart of the one overflowing. And the more people that receive this message, the more we're adding to this frequency, the more we're going to manifest this, the more powerfully and the faster we're going to manifest this. So I wish I could share to all the groups, but I'm blocked from that. So thank you for sharing with people that you think can add to this portal here and help us to activate this mission. If you guys don't follow me already on YouTube, I'm youtube.com/Rebecca Magic. If you hit subscribe, you will get notified when these videos happen weekly, and it's easy to forget, so it's nice to get those notifications. They go live here, of course, on Facebook, Rebecca Magic, and then they get uploaded to YouTube. I've been sharing a lot about the tarot and manipulations within the modern descriptions of tarot, sharing a lot about occult symbolism. We're doing a weekly class every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Arizona time. We're doing classes in the occult symbolism of the tarot. We've done the Fool, the Magician, and the High Priestess. This Wednesday will be the Empress, also known as the Unveiled Isis. So if you want to join in that, let me know. I have the recordings for the first 3 classes. I can send them to you. It's all done through Zoom. And if you want to join in on Wednesday, let me know. I'll send you the info for that as well. It's all donation-based. So just come, just show up. If you have nothing to offer, remember your presence is such a gift. The more perspective, the better in the class. I love that it's live, and I encourage people to participate and share so that we can get as wide of a perspective as possible on each of these cards and archetypes. My book is also out. Let's see if I don't have a copy of it on me right now, but it's called The Royal Path, Activating the Archetypal Alliance Within. So if you search The Royal Path on the Amazon Marketplace, it is there. Also, you can private message me and I can send you a copy. I can write a little love note for you in there and ship it to you wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you've never done divination, never used cards, never even heard about tarot. The goal of writing that book was to explain it in a way that reveals the truth of what these characters are. They're not just cards. They're symbols and characters that personify the different aspects of the psyche. And each one of us have these different parts within the mind. We have these different angles of the mind. So every one of us can relate to these characters deeply, in a way that touches our soul. And in a way that when we connect with them, it allows us to tap into frequencies that are at the foundation of all of life. And when we do that, we begin to develop a relationship with these characters or frequencies, right? And we begin to effortlessly work together with them. You see, you are a part of the archetypal alliance. Without those frequencies, we can't really do much to elevate this world. But also, without us, these frequencies have no vessel to do the work. So you, man or woman, human, are the vessel for these sacred frequencies of light to come in and do something with that light. Your senses are the sacred senses that work together with these holy frequencies to make stuff happen, to actually do something with all of this knowledge and wisdom. So if you want to know how to better do that, if you want to connect to these archetypes, these characters in a way beyond the cards or just the tarot alone, then the book is for you. It's easy for anyone to understand. The other thing is this. Tarot is like the cream of the crop when it comes to occult symbolism. Studying the science of occultism in general is amazingly beneficial, but the tarot, if there was any tool to study to understand occult symbolism, the tarot is it. It's based on Kabbalah. It's basically a mini Torah, tarot, Torah. Torah means the law, by the way. It's basically a mini Torah condensed into pictorial form. And these symbols not just within the tarot, but occult symbolism in general. So if you study occult symbolism, symbolism of Freemasonry or secret societies, whatever, all these symbols are built upon the laws of truth, universal, cosmic, natural law. So they all reveal some aspect of truth, which is revealing some aspect of ourselves. So when we align our being with truth, when we align our thoughts, our words, our actions, our frequency with nature and with the universe, with the cosmos, these symbols reflect that truth, and we align with these symbols. And so what happens is when we think truth, symbols will help to fortify what we're thinking. They'll help to reinforce our realizations. Or when you're speaking truth, nature around you will seem to dance in harmony with what you're saying. And people will go, wow, I feel the truth coming out of her mouth. I feel the truth around him, supporting everything he's saying. I feel like I can trust this person. I feel the truth emanating from his heart. That's what they'll say. Because the symbols that are all around will support what you're thinking, saying, doing. And you'll have the whole support of the universe to back you up. So when you align your will with the will of the divine, these occult symbols, they empower you, they protect you, they surround you, they illuminate you to be a guiding force for anyone who crosses your path. Especially the tarot, such specific symbols personifying the key aspects of self. So I'll do a reading, for example, and I'll say, I'm really feeling the star coming up in your life. I feel the theme of the star. And then I'll pull a card, and guess what? It'll be the star. So you don't need the cards, you don't need the tools, you don't need the symbols to access the truth because it's within you. But all these tools serve to confirm what you're already thinking, what you're already saying, and what you're doing. They back you up. A lot of people ask me, do you need the cards? No, I don't need them. But they certainly help back up what I'm saying, so you don't have to just take my word for it. But the cards are all out on the table. You can see for yourself. So just keep that in mind. You can all be masters of occult symbolism, and it's my goal to help uncover the truth of these occult symbols in a way that's easily understood by anyone who wants to know, by anyone who wants to understand the realms of the unseen. Because guess what? Even children can do it. In fact, they do it effortlessly. So let's join them. Because only when we regain that innocence, when we become that childlike frequency, can we enter into the kingdom of heaven, right? Thank you guys for joining for this final quarter activation. I appreciate you, and thank you for sharing to groups since I'm blocked. I'm so excited to see how many people tune into this and receive this message. How many of us can be united in this initiation of the heart, right? Because that Ace of Cups is a super powerful message right now. So I'm curious to see who are going to be the light workers, the ones carrying this initiation for the all. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys on Wednesday for the class on the occult symbolism of the Empress or Unveiled Isis. And I look forward to seeing you all for the new moon activation next week. Remember, you're in between right now. We're closing up the old and preparing for the new. We're planting the seed that's going to be the fruit, which is the overflowing cup, the overflowing heart. Thank you guys. I'll see you soon. Shalom.